right to health and food, it is noted that governments around the world are proceeding with differential agendas, such as investing massively in the military, aerospace research, ways to develop the fashion industry, and more recently, artificial intelligence. 3.1, Mr. President, the Plenary Assembly may wish to note that a similar disconnect is noted in the SADC region, where food and energy security are major issues which affect the enjoyment of basic human rights. Economic growth, which is a direct indicator of how much a society is able to produce, is projected to be less for sub-Saharan Africa for other regions in 2023. The latest data available from the International Monetary Fund is of concern since the economic growth for the sub-Saharan Africa is projected to drop from 3.9 to 3.9% in 2023 before rising to 4.2% in 2024. Thus indicating that 2023 is likely to be a harsher year for the consumer. 3.2, Mr. President, as specified in the OECD FAO Agricultural Outlook 2022 to 2031, it is expected that sub-Saharan Africa will be adding more than 330 million to its domestic population by the year end 2031, representing a population growth of 2.5% per annum. While economies in the region have a high dependency on resource-based commodities and on production of agricultural products, the development of a sustainable agro-industry appears to be imperative for the long-term survival of our region and for the absorption of the emerging youth into skilled positions. In addition, Africa is also home to millions of hectares of unused arable land, which has the potential to yield high-end agricultural products that can be used both for the domestic market and for export. 3.3, Mr. President, the Plenary Assembly is invited to further note that agricultural products and products emanating from the agro-industry form part of goods which can be traded under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and can contribute to improving intra-trade within Africa and reducing the trade deficit with other regions. 3.4, furthermore, Mr. President, farming and its products can also be a source of renewable and clean energy, which would assist to alleviate the energy deficit in sub-Saharan Africa and reduce the region's continuous dependence on fossil fuels, while averting rising inflationary prices due to Russia-Ukraine conflict and other reasons. According to FAO, solar-powered irrigation in Rwanda and biogas digesters to help keep milk fresh in Tanzania are success stories on how farming can assist to generate clean energy that caters for farming needs and other purposes. In addition, wind and solar farms are commonly located in the vicinity of agricultural pastures, where the grounds are exposed to abundant wind and sun. In the next 10 years, agriculture can, therefore, be a panacea to both food and energy security deficits in Southern Africa, provided early investments are progressively made in the coming years by a reprioritization of government agendas. Decision required, Honorable President, honorable members, the Plenary Assembly is requested to note the above SADC Regional Outlook in 2023, which motivated the framing of the theme of the 53rd Plenary Assembly as Modernizing Agriculture to address food and insecurity and unemployment in the SADC region, the role of parliaments. The Plenary Assembly is further invited to acknowledge that parliaments should be at the center of reform and oversight initiatives to catalyze the modernization of agricultural techniques and output for the direct benefit of SADC citizens. Do I proceed, Honorable President, or do you want the plenary to say agreed or not?
I think you proceed, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. 4.0, hosting of the 53rd Plenary Assembly. The Plenary Assembly is requested to place on record its sincere thanks to the Parliament of the United Republic of Tanzania, led by Honorable Dr. Tulia Ackson, for graciously accepting to host the 53rd Plenary Assembly session. The Plenary Assembly is further invited to convey its gratitude through the host speaker, Honorable Dr. Tulia Ackson, to Her Excellency, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, for accepting to officially open the 53rd Plenary Assembly session. The Plenary Assembly is further requested to place on record its gratitude to the government and people of the United Republic of Tanzania for the warm hospitality being enjoyed by all delegates to the 53rd Plenary Assembly session. 5.0, update on the transformation of the SADC PF into a SADC regional parliament. Mr. President and honorable members, EXCO invites the Plenary Assembly to recall that the 42nd SADC Summit Heads of State and Government convened from the 17th to the 18th of August 2022 in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo, to inter alia review the progress made on the transformation of the forum into a SADC regional parliament. On that occasion, it was highlighted that the next legal steps would proceed with the transformation would be the signature of the agreement amending the SADC treaty by member states, followed by the signature and ratification of the protocol on the SADC parliament. 5.2.
5,2, le comité exécutif invite en outre l'Assemblée plénière à tenir compte de ce que le statut quo actuel est que 8 sur 16 États membres de la SADC ont signé l'accord en modifiant le traité de la SADC, alors que 12 signatures sont nécessaires pour que l'amendement entre en vigueur sur le plan légal. Le Conseil de la SADC, qui s'est réuni en mars 2023, a conseillé que ce n'est que lorsque l'amendement sera en vigueur que le protocole pourra être mis en vigueur et sa ratification sera initiée grâce au secrétariat de la SADC. Actuellement, le secrétariat du PF SADC travaille en tandem avec le secrétariat de la SADC pour veiller à ce que les instruments juridiques soient conformes aux politiques des organes de la SADC et aux principales fonctions du forum tel que prévu dans le projet de protocole. Décision attendue des honorables membres, l'Assemblée plénière est invitée à prendre note de ces développements et à prouver que le forum continue de travailler avec le SADC le secrétaire de la SADC pour réfléchir sur les fonctions du forum telles que prévues dans la feuille de route de transformation et deuxièmement, que les plaidoyers soient effectués par le forum auprès des chefs d'État et de gouvernement, du ministère des Affaires étrangères pour garantir les progrès dans la signature de l'amendement du traité de la SADC. Je vais poursuivre, Monsieur le Président, 6.1, le point sur le forum du Parlement de la SADC et ses précédents. Monsieur le Président, il souviendra à l'Assemblée plénière En ce qui concerne l'interprétation, je reçois l'interprétation.
And not on Channel 1. I'm getting French on Channel 1, so I don't know if that can be sorted out. Yes, I have French on Channel 2 now. Yes. Thank you. I think you can proceed, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. 6.1, Mr. President and honorable members, as the Plenary Assembly will recall, the establishment of the SADC Parliamentary Forum and its successors trust was approved by the 50th Plenary Assembly of the Forum, and amendments were subsequently brought to the constitution of the Forum to inter alia establish the trust as an organ under Article 10.1. 6.2, Mr. President and honorable members, EXCO is pleased to advise the Plenary Assembly that the trust deed has since been duly registered with the Master of the High Court of the Republic of Namibia after it was signed by the 3 first trustees in Windhoek, Namibia, in the presence of a notary public. In accordance with the agreed language requirements and alphabetical order of member parliaments, the first 3 trustees were nominated by the parliaments of Namibia, that is for English, Angola, Portuguese, and DRC French. The names of the trustees are indicated in the table which appears in the EXCO report and which I am going to read out, starting with the parliament, name of trustee, occupation, and gender. For the Parliament of Angola, name of trustees, Honorable Aiza Nasilia Gomez da Silva. Occupation, Chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Economic and Financial Affairs of the National Assembly, and this is a female. Under DRC, which is the second one, Honorable Andre Leon Tumba Mukendi. This is a member of parliament and is a male. And the third one is Namibia, and that's French. Namibia, Honorable Professor Peter Kachavivi, Speaker of the National Assembly, and this is a male. 6.3, decision required. That Plenary Assembly is requested to note the above developments and approve that the trust be allowed to work independently in accordance with the trust law prevailing in Namibia and to resource mobilize on behalf of the forum as beneficiary. B, that the appointed trustees are to henceforth conduct the proceedings of the trust pursuant to their powers and functions under the registered trust deed. 7, domestication strategies led by the forum. Mr. President, as the Plenary Assembly will recall, the domestication of regional normative frameworks continues to be a crucial issue with interparliamentary organs such as the forum face in the 21st century. With the uncertain economic climate, protectionism is gradually pushing countries to adopt conservative policy which impede the harmonization of legal norms at the international level. Protectionism is a school of thought which encourages countries to consider only what works for themselves, irrespective of changes on the international plane or international commitments taken. Due to sovereignty protectionism, many countries have pulled out of international treaties or have left international organizations which share a common developmental purpose. 7.2, Mr. President, organizations such as SADC Parliamentary Forum are directly concerned with the issue of protectionism versus domestication, especially since the forum develops regional normative legislative instruments in the form of model laws which have persuasive value for its member parliaments. 7.3, in this respect, the forum needs to continually innovate to develop tools and partnerships to continue that domestication strategies are engaged with greater momentum. Some of these domestication strategies, which have been recently implemented, are highlighted below. 7.3.1, a scorecard is being developed for the recently adopted model law on public financial management. In this regard, terms of reference have been formulated for the technical working group to be revived to oversee the work of the consultant appointed to develop the scorecard. The scorecard is in process of finalization with regular oversight from the PFM Technical Working Group. 7.3.2, the SRHR, HIV, and AIDS Governance Project of 2019 to 2023 is coming to an end. In this respect, the forum will submit a new project proposal for a 3-year period to Sweden with focus areas which includes gender equality and sexual gender-based violence, universal health coverage, comprehensive sexuality education, early and unintended pregnancies and safe abortion, and the advancement of democratization and human rights. This is in line with the strategic plan of the Forum 2019 to 2023 to pursue gender equality in Southern Africa and prevent discrimination, especially for the key populations. 7.3.3, a benchmarking meeting was held with the interparliamentary organizations of the main regional economic communities in Africa in February 2023 to discuss harmonizing norms around key governance themes such as gender equality, SRHR, anti-corruption, public financial management, amongst others. Knowledge tools in the form of principles and guidelines on human rights and anti-corruption were pre-tested and validated with national parliaments. Workshops and regional trainings were also conducted with MPs and staff of parliament on the themes of political participation of women, democratic accountability, and the African Continental Free Trade Area in the period February to March 2023. Decision requires, honorable members, that the plenary assembly is requested to approve the continued strategy of the forum to collaborate with parliaments and relevant stakeholders and pursue domestication of legal norms through targeted projects and initiatives that aim to enhance the socio-economic landscape in SADC in line with the forum strategic plan. 8, update on South-South global cooperation. The plenary assembly is invited to recall that the forum has been collaborating with the authorities in Venezuela for some time now through the election observation and other initiatives to share peer experience, cross-learn, and explore areas of cooperation across the Latin America, Southern Africa geographical axis. In this respect, some MPs from the Standing Committee on Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources participated in a working session in the Republic of Venezuela from the 29th of March to the 4th of April 2023. The objective of the meeting was to interrogate energy and agriculture issues, which areas are directly relevant to the theme of the 53rd Plenary Assembly session of the Forum. It was an opportune occasion for MPs of the Forum to appreciate how that country was dealing with various issues in the agriculture and energy sectors, which were of interest to the SADC region, especially as the SADC region is itself wrought with similar issues in energy insufficiency, food insecurity, climate disasters, the drying up of oil reserves, to cite but a few. A few outcomes from the working session included the prospect of forging collaborative agreements and friendship associations between Venezuela and the national parliaments under the umbrella of the forum, with the aim of keeping alive the momentum garnered through the strategic South-South cooperation. Decision required, honorable members, that the plenary assembly is requested to note the above developments and approve that the initiatives for South-South cooperation be further explored in line with the forum's mandate to pursue interparliamentary networking, in particular with countries across the Atlantic Ocean in Latin America, such as Mexico, Venezuela, Bolivia, etc., which share similar socio-economic priorities as the SADC nations. 9, update on resource mobilization initiative. Mr. President and honorable members, EXCO invites the plenary assembly to note that several initiatives have been conducted by the forum to resource mobilize in view of implementing related thematic programs and projects. In this regard, in the margins of the 67th session of the UN Commission on the Status of Women in March 2023, the forum met with US stakeholders involved in global development cooperation to explore possibilities of resource mobilization for projects on gender equality, public health, and the Sustainable Development Goals. The forum met with representatives of the National Democratic Institute and the US Department of State and the US Agency for International Development, amongst others, to introduce the forum and relate its main intervention areas in the fields of advancing human rights, corporate governance, and strengthening democracy in Southern Africa. It was highlighted that contrary to other regional organizations, the forum is an apolitical organization which includes both government and opposition MPs and is ideally poised to advance democratic accountability and engage on good governance and anti-corruption frameworks. 9.3, Mr. President, honorable members, the role of the forum is setting normative legal benchmarks for the region in the form of model laws was highlighted, including the avenues for dissemination of such benchmarks to member states and their continuous monitoring through the forum's dedicated oversight organ. In this vein, the partners welcomed the presentations made by forum's representatives and expressed their appreciation, since some of them had never appreciated the work of the forum in advancing democracy and human rights and had in fact ignored the forum's existence. 9.4, the outcomes of this exchange with US partners was that many were impressed with the forum's robust mandate and also its achievements in model lawmaking and domestication. They consequently undertook to explore further partnerships with the forum and its member parliaments. In addition, Mr. President, the forum also engaged with the Indian Embassy in April 2023 to explore possible capacity building collaboration in ICT and other areas where India has played a pioneering role. The Indian Embassy expressed its willingness to assist the forum in the future, highlighting that currently the country's funding priorities are more skewed towards supporting individual countries instead of regional organizations. The embassy would thus be keen to consider bilateral arrangements for capacity building with individual countries with the facilitation of the SADC PF. Decision, honorable members, required. The plenary assembly is requested to approve that resource mobilization initiatives continue to be explored with the U.S. cooperating partners, the Indian Embassy, and other partners which share similar objectives as the Forum in Development Cooperation. 10, proposal to host the Southern African Regional Hub, SAHAB, under the auspices of the Forum. Mr. President, 10.1, EXCO invites the Plenary Assembly to recall that the Interparliamentary Union and the National Assembly of Zambia agreed by a memorandum of understanding in December 2019 that the Southern Africa Regional Hub be hosted by the National Assembly of Zambia. The hub was set up with a view of empowering national parliaments to embrace ICT innovation and digitalize their services. This represented the outcome of the e-Parliament Conference 2018 held in Geneva, whereby the IPU Center for Innovation in Parliament announced a partnership between the IPU and parliaments to support parliamentary innovation through the enhanced use of digital tools. It was highlighted that digital tools were time-saving and they helped to surmount physical barriers, thus bringing countries together and making inter-parliamentary collaboration come to life. 10.2, Mr. President, the SAHAB is critical to assist the Forum and other national parliaments to upgrade their digital platforms and move meetings online during the COVID-19 period. Today, the SAHAB represents a valuable asset for the region, with a membership of Southern African states which mirrors that of a SADC PF. Be that as it may, since the MOU between the IPU and the Parliament of Zambia has expired on the 31st of December 2021, the SAHAB is technically without a host. In this respect, 10.3, Mr. President, it is proposed that the Forum considers hosting the SAHAB on a permanent basis. At the same time, given that the Forum has also embarked on initiatives to capacitate national parliaments on ICT innovation, the hosting of the SAHAB will bring renewed impetus and technical expertise to its efforts. The hosting of the SAHAB will also augment the ICT skills available under the umbrella of the Forum and further refine the Forum's ICT processes as it envisions to transform to a SADC regional parliament. 10.4, the IPU has already approved that the SAHAB be hosted by the SADC PF, and this update will be surfaced at the forthcoming IPU session to take place in Luanda in Angola later this year. 10.5 decision, honorable members, that the Plenary Assembly is requested to approve that the SAHAB be hosted at the Forum and that resource mobilization be undertaken to fund the hosting so that same does not affect the Forum's core budget. 11, update on the Forum's risk management framework. 11.1, Mr. President, EXCO invites the Plenary Assembly to recall that a risk register is now in place at the Forum with regards to which strategic and operational risks of the Forum are being closely monitored. In this respect, staff of the Forum contribute to the reporting process with a centralized database maintained for all existing risks. 11.2, the Plenary Assembly is requested to note that there are no imminent operational risks existing at the Forum at current date. One identified risk is that of the finances of the Forum, which do not leave the scope to conduct all statutory activities physically, and that this is being remedied by conducting some events virtually or through donor support where possible. The lack of finances also implies that no recruitment can be envisaged currently and that positions are to be filled by secondment. The Plenary Assembly is requested to note that the Director of Parliamentary Business and Programs, which was a position approved to be filled by secondment by the Plenary Assembly, has now assumed functions at the Forum's headquarters in Windhoek. 11.3 decision, honorable members. The Plenary Assembly is requested to note the above and to approve that the risk management framework of the Forum be continuously monitored with rigor so that the Forum does not meet with any operational or strategic impediments in the medium to long term. Mr. President, I beg to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your presentation of the report. I will now call on the seconder, Honorable Pedro Sebastião, to present his address on the seconding of the motion.
Senhor Presidente do Fórum Parlamentar da SADC, senhores Presidentes dos Parlamentos Nacionais, caros colegas, em apoio ao projeto de resolução.
In seconding
It's not Portuguese. The Portuguese is not on.
I'm in English now. It's now in English, yes.
It's not here.
This is the English now. Okay.
What's it here?
No, it's fine.
Sebastião, please proceed. The English is on one.
Senhor Presidente do Fórum,
Dear President, Mr. President of the SADC, dear speakers of national parliaments, in seconding the motion, allow me to begin by paying a well-deserved glowing tribute to the mover of the motion for articulating the issues deliberated upon by the Executive Committee so eloquently and with such depth in detail. Because the mover has gone to such length to provide a detailed and clear update to the Plenary Assembly on the issues deliberated upon by EXCO, I will just focus on and lay emphasis on the three issues which I consider critical for the operation of the Forum. Firstly, Mr. President, let me speak on the issue on the SADC Parliamentary Forum and its Accessors Trust. It is gratifying to note that the trust has now been registered. This milestone would not have been attained if some individuals among us had not gone beyond the call of duty in pushing this agenda. Let me take this opportunity to thank them all, whether present today or not. We also pay tribute to the Secretary General and her team for their dedication to this very important cause. That said, Mr. President, it is time for us to make sure of the trust as a special purpose vehicle to actualize the promises of various well-wishers who have been waiting on the wings to support the work of the Forum now that the trust has been registered. We therefore look forward to the fulfillment of those commitments so that the trust can begin to operate in earnest. Mr. President, secondly, I will say a few words on the status of the transformation of the SADC Parliamentary Forum into a regional parliament. It is worrying concern, it's a concern that progress has been very slow in getting the 12 signatures, given that almost a year has elapsed since approval was given by the heads of state in principle to amend the SADC treaty, and yet only 8 members have so far signed the agreement amending the treaty. 7 have not signed yet. In my view, the fact that they are yet to sign is not because there was no support, since all of them have indicated at various fora that they fully support the transformation. In many cases, member states have not signed the agreement amending the treaty because of the need to fulfill domestic administrative processes required before a state can agree to be party of an agreement of such a nature. This calls for concerted efforts in terms of lobbying and advocacy at domestic level in order to ensure that these administrative procedures can be concluded quickly and enable the member states to sign the agreement. It is therefore incumbent upon national parliaments whose heads of state have not signed the agreement amending this treaty to coordinate lobbying and advocacy missions to their respective countries so that the process of concluding administrative processes and signing can be prioritized and accelerated. As has been highlighted by the mover of this mission, it is the attainment of the 12 signatures that will bring the amendment into effect, unlock the process of finalization of the protocol on the SADC Parliament and other processes on the transformation agenda. Mr. President, my third and final point is to reiterate the dire need for member parliaments to support our secretariat through the secondment of staff in positions which are critical to the organization structure of the organization. This is critical if we have to capacitate our secretariat to serve us better through its various departments. Besides, this is what we ourselves have repeatedly decided to do as a solution to the staff shortages in our institutions and in order to mitigate the strategic and operational risks of this organization. In this regard, allow me to take this opportunity to thank the Parliament of Malawi for fulfilling its commitment by seconding a full-time Director of Parliamentary Business and Programs at full cost to the National Parliament. This is commendable, and all member parliaments should consider seconding qualified staff to help the forum in pursuit of its noble objectives in regional interparliamentary cooperation. It should be remembered that seconding staff to the forum is not a waste of staff resources. It should rather be considered as contribution to interparliamentary integration, where the member parliament is itself a direct beneficiary and indirectly through exposure of its staff parliamentary work at the regional level. Finally, the forum operates for the benefit of each and every one of its member parliaments, and the gains of secondment will be felt sooner rather than later. Mr. President, with these few words, I beg to second the motion. I thank you.
I shall now open the floor for debate on the motion. Members who wish to debate will please indicate their request by a show of hands. Please be reminded that each member has an allocation of 5 minutes for an intervention, and I remind members once again to be sure to identify yourself when you take the floor. Please allow us to take note of the, please maintain your hands up for a minute while we take note. Thank you. I will start with the member from the Republic of South Africa.
Thank you. The name is Darren Bergman, and I suppose I wear the cap of the ex-treasurer. Sadly, it's probably my last few weeks here. Just to state that and compliment our speaker on the reports. It was a very comprehensive report. I think a lot of people don't understand the two hiccups, that they probably saw them as hiccups when the speaker delegated the obligations to other members of the delegation. She's someone that believes in empowerment, and I think what she was trying to do was actually, as she said to us, she likes to empower gender and the youth. And what she was doing is trying to include as many people of the delegation as possible, and I suppose we respect that and appreciate that. Further to that, I'd just like to say, in terms of the report itself, we started in Seychelles, and I think we have to show gratitude to the host. We have to show gratitude to the host of Seychelles. I think that the executive committee in Seychelles, I think we were welcomed there, and the president of SADC and the president of Seychelles gave us a very warm welcome. And I think we must appreciate that and say that that was a very high benchmark left from that executive meeting. And then, as we said, that Mauritius was going to host the 53rd plenary, but we find ourselves in Tanzania. And I think for Tanzania, picking up the preparations, we must also congratulate Tanzania for being able to do so quickly and comprehensively, and again, being most welcome, and to have the president, the speaker, and to have everything organized. Once again, I think a big round of applause to Tanzania as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Let me start by thanking the presenter, who is the Speaker of the Republic of South Africa, for a well-regulated and detailed report. My intervention is going to be on the signatories, Mr. President. We have been informed that only 8 out of the 15, having a balance of 7. Maybe for the benefit of the House, of this August House, Mr. President, maybe if we would know that which countries are these 8, so that we're able to understand which countries are remaining, because maybe Malawi can be one of it, and I would ask the leader of delegation here to my right hand and the Speaker to help our lobby so that we get the signatory as soon as possible so that we move progressively. I submit, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now move to the member from Eswatini.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the opportunity. May I first express gratitude to the mover of the motion moving for the adoption of the Executive Committee report. Very comprehensive and very eloquently articulated. But be that as it may, one must say, and I hope one is not repeating what has been said already, because what I am going to say, we can say it and say it until we say it no more. By saying it no more, it's when we see the result. This issue, which Malawi has just touched upon, but albeit from a different perspective, is concerning, one must say. It's not inspiring, it is not endangering hope that we will ever reach where we want to be. Let us be frank about it. As we delay, keep on delaying this matter, I don't know why and where is the hiccup. The chances are that we may never see the light at the end of the tunnel, because government regimes change. Now, one would have thought when the governments that approved the protocol treaty were still in office, and maybe they are still in office, what a chance and opportunity for them to have signed this thing when they were clearly understanding what it is. I personally don't understand what is the hold-up in signing. I think it's the third, if not the second, if not the third time that we have been told of a very small number that of signatures to the protocol. I wouldn't be saying who is not signing, but what I'm suggesting, maybe as a way forward, which the presenter has actually alluded to, is the fact that we look at initiating yet another, maybe more effective initiative, namely the lobby forum team, lobby forum, whatever that means. What I was thinking, we used, and I think we still have, a very effective and very influential lobby team. We would be knowing and would be getting a complete report who is having problems. I don't think it is state duties or what that are holding our dear heads of states to sign. Maybe they are still considering it, which we may consider it until doomsday, if I may be very that negative, Mr. President. Well, I'm suggesting why not consider that effective lobby team we had to check in particular on those countries, heads of states that have not signed up to now. A year is really long, and everything is happening under this dynamic environment. I'm just worried, Mr. President, that after working so hard and getting approval from the summit, we are still not making meaningful progress thereafter. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now call on the member from Tanzania.
Thank you, Mr. President. The point that I want to raise is in a way the same as the point that has been raised by Malawi and Eswatini regarding the transformation of the forum to the whole parliament. As it has been pointed out that the decision to transform the forum to permanent parliament was approved by the summit. And summit, we mean head of state. So logically, they would have no any hesitation in signing because it's head of states themselves who has agreed on this. I understand that my country, Tanzania, have signed. It's in those 8 SADC member states that have signed it. And I agree with the Malawi that we need to know those 8 countries that have not signed, but I also agree with Eswatini that it's good we know the reason so that we can know that is there going to be a signing or not. We need to know the reason. Because if the country agreed in principle that we need transformation and yet that country is not signing, then there should be a reason. There should be a reason. So it's not only enough to have a list of 8 countries that have not signed, but we should know each country that what is holding them back from signing. Is it administrative issues? Is there any tangible reason or problem? So I think we should know by each country so that we can estimate maybe in the next 3 months or the next 4 months, in the next 6 months, we are going to have the signature. And we are told that we only need 4 signatures so that we can have 12 signatures. And the 12 signatures are enough for us to proceed. So we don't have to wait until all 8 signatures are available. As we are now, we need only 4 so that we can have 12 signatures and proceed. So it's good to know the reason from each country. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I have the member from Lesotho. Okay, thank you. I have the member from Zimbabwe.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Yes?
Lesotho still wants to take the floor, but the prof doesn't have a mic.
Oh, thank you. I believe we can sort that out in a minute.
This one works. Thank you very much, Honorable President. Just to join in to compliment the Speaker of the South African Parliament for a very detailed presentation indeed. Really, if I could have as well surrendered the issue I was going to raise because most of the previous speakers have addressed that issue, which was really to be taken into confidence as to which countries have not appended their signature to this transformation of the forum. I would imagine a country such as mine, which has just had a change of leadership, may have not addressed this matter. So it helps to know which countries owe their signatures so that we could carry on with the lobbying and advocacy in order to fast track this process. That's all that I wanted to ask, Mr. Chairman, just to be taken into confidence, which countries are indeed owing on their signatures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now move to the member from Zimbabwe.
That's me, eh?
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I get the sense of doubt and lack of faith in the final outcome of our journey in the transformation of SADC-PF. Let us abuse that, because it has been a long, long journey to be where we are now. The seed for the establishment of SADC-PF was sown in Namibia in 1992. And it took 5 years for the protocol to be signed by our heads of states and government in Blantyre, 9 September 1997. So the germination of that seed took 5 years, but people did not stop. They didn't lose their faith. And come 2014, because that protocol indicated that finally SADC-PF would transform into a parliamentary entity, then we started the lobbying in 2014. And it took us 8 years to convince the heads of state and government who met in Malawi at the 41st summit in August to agree that the transformation should take place. 8 years. Now, after the Malawi summit, we are now into the second year of making sure that the amendment to the SADC treaty is done. 8 countries have signed. I am the leader of the lobbying group, unless if someone has started a coup. But as far as I'm concerned, I am still the leader. I'm still the leader. I have approached Namibia. Namibia is in the process of signing through its parliamentary process. Now, let me clarify. In other countries, it only needs parliament to say yes, and they sign. In other countries, you don't need parliament only. The executive must come in and say yes. The office of the Attorney General must come in after scrutinizing the legal implications. So that's the difference in the delays. Namibia is coming on board, Botswana is coming on board, DRC is coming on board, and Mauritius is coming on board. In fact, I should be going to Mauritius with colleagues to meet the Prime Minister there. And with these guarantees, we are going to have 12 members signing. But we want all members of the 15 member states to sign so that we don't only end with 12. We want ownership by the whole SADC family. Finance They should not be hesitating through our parliaments. Let me remind you, the African Union is not funded fully by subscriptions. 72% of the funding of the AU is coming from donor countries. SADC itself, 65%. And in our own national governments, national parliaments, the budget that we pass is not sufficient. Either you go to the IMF or the World Bank to top up your national budgets. So the issue of finance should not create hesitation in our minds. Mr. President, we have come up with the idea of the trust, which has now been registered as a vehicle for resource mobilization. So we are going to get the funds outside the subscriptions of member parliaments. And finally, Mr. President, on the item number 4, on the question of the trust, there's an omission there under 4.2. It was agreed at our executive, and we accepted that the Right Honorable Muti from Zambia would be one of the trustees. And this was affirmed in Seychelles. And we said the Speaker of Namibia is the settler of the trust. And we needed another trustee. And that trustee is the Honorable Muti, Speaker of Zambia. So that list must be complete accordingly. Finally, let me commend the mover of the motion, Honorable Speaker from South Africa, and also commend the Secretary General that this report is one of the best reports, if not the best, where after reading it, I couldn't see any grammar mistake except one comma. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. May I just verify? I see that I wrote Tanzania down twice. Was there another hand raised from Tanzania? Is that correct? Please, would you address?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And before I proceed, may I take this opportunity to congratulate the last speaker,
I've seen Zambia.
Advocate Mudenda, our learned brother, who is very confident. It seems he's a really seasoned lawyer. Mr. President, if I may just say that I'm interested to assist him if he's looking for a senior citizen in lobbying and an experienced one. I said experienced because coming from Tanzania, you know, we are in EALA. And this is also another region. And I have an experience because it was once there and then it broke up, the East Africa. So now they have the East Africa Legislative Assembly. And not only that, but from Tanzania and Zanzibar, we have the two parliaments, the one in Tanzania and the other one, we have representatives in Zanzibar. So you can see how much experience I can be. My name is Shirley Raymond, Member of Parliament from Tanzania. Mr. President. Mr. President, if I may request you to compliment the report which was read by our Honorable Speaker from South Africa, Madam Ngakula. It is really a very rich document. And before I proceed, I'm also requesting that we should get the soft copy today so that we can sleep on it, read it again and again, because it has a lot of things, but now we are only dwelling on one thing, which was a burning issue in people's hearts. And this is the issue of the plenary assembly
to become a full parliament. A lot have been done from the trustee, although there is a shortcome that the trustees were mentioned to be 11, if I'm not mistaken, but then she only talked of about 5, and then the topic was changed. Why, I don't know. The other thing is that so much has been done, and here I have to congratulate Secretary General with her team, because really it needs someone to be very patient. And also, I congratulate the member states. They are patient, they are doing it well. But from where it started in 1992, people were walking. Even a child, when he's born, starts walking very slowly. Then it reaches a stage whereby one needs to run because he or she have not accomplished enough. And here is where we are. It's now time to see that we are going fast and finalize this thing. Mr. President, you have seen how people, member states have burning hearts for this thing to be completed. So I request you at your position to see how much you can assist before your term ends, that we should become a full parliament. Another thing, there were a lot of things mentioned in this report. Not to forget about staffing, not to forget about financial challenges. If we just wait and say, well, let us be patient, when you are broke, no patience. You need that cash to do things. You want to see things rolling. Now, we should also, we as SADC, well, plenary assembly, we should also see that it's high time we run. May I submit?
Thank you, honorable member. I will recognize the member from Malawi. From? Yes. Please proceed.
No, thank you very much, Mr. President. Yeah, Mr. President, I'm rising now on supplementary because through the history that I've heard from the Speaker from the Republic of Zimbabwe, it was in 1992 that we had traveled for 5 years to get the forum. And now from 2014, they have been lobbying up until 2022, which is 8 years. So I wanted to ask how further should we wait for the completion? Because my understanding is that upon the summit, which is the heads of state, they all agreed in Lilongwe on the year of the Lord, 2022. I believe that was the end of the journey. So what we needed is just to have the signatures written. So how long, or when we are leaving this plenary here in Arusha, Mr. President, for how long should we wait? The timeline, we need to come up with a timeline because we cannot keep on walking, as my mother from Tanzania has said. We need to start running and time is not on our side. So the question is, how long, Mr. President, should we wait to get these signatures done? Because from 2014 to 2022, that's 8 years. That's a long, long, long time, Mr. President. I submit.
Thank you, honorable member. I will now give the floor to the honorable speaker from Zambia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, the Right Honorable Speaker from South Africa, for a well-rendered report. Of course, on the issue of the protocol, I think we need to do more lobbying. Of course, there are 7 countries that have signed, or 8 countries that have signed. We need more countries to sign. But in terms of timelines, I believe that we cannot give ourselves timelines because now the processes are out of our hands. It's now the executive that needs to make a decision when to sign and why they should sign. And from the discussion that we had, not putting any words in the mouth of Her Excellency, the President of Tanzania, she indicated that there were two concerns over the turning of the SADC PF into a parliament. One of them was the issue of subscriptions. There was a worry or a concern that if we convert to a parliament, probably the subscriptions might be increased. Then secondly, the issue of the trust. I believe that there are most of our leaders are not yet comfortable with the issue of creating a trust, because the one who funds you sometimes can play the tune. So we have to be very careful. I think what we need to do is to engage further our president, just to explain through the chairman of the lobbying group, to explain what the circumstances are surrounding the trust, and also to reassure them that with the trust, maybe there will be no need for increasing the subscriptions. But of course, the issue of trust is a concern by the heads of state. From what I gathered, I'm sure the delegation of Namibia would be able to shed more light on this. It's a pity the honorable member is not in. I had indicated to him that maybe he needed to say something, because on the sidelines we did discuss and this issue arose. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will give the floor to the Speaker from Zimbabwe.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. What timeline? I think we need to be infectious believers. According to our estimate of the lobby group, before the end of this year, we should have the 12 signatories, if not more. That's one. The second aspect is that once the agreement has been completed in terms of the required 12 members, and I said earlier, our aim is, Mr. President, make sure that all member states of SADC sign up so that there's total ownership of the transformation. Otherwise, we may have some staccatos in future. After that has happened, Mr. President, the next thing is to have the protocol. The protocol is the instrument of establishing the regional parliament. And the protocol will be there to give the architecture of that parliament in terms of the modalities of personnel and so on, the committees, etc., etc. That structure will be given by the protocol. Already, through the office of the Secretary General and the previous executive some 3-4 years ago, we did come up with a prototype protocol, which is before the executive secretary of SADC in Botswana. And there is a team of officials from the office of the Secretary General of SADC PF and the office of the Executive Secretary of SADC, who are going to put together, in fact, they've started putting together the nitty-gritties of how that protocol is going to look like before presenting it to the ministers, to the Council of Ministers, who are mainly ministers of foreign affairs. Once it is ventilated there, the Council of the Ministers will then table it to the summit, SADC summit. We are hoping that should take place by next year in August. And we pray the Almighty God that all of us sitting in this room will be there to witness that transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I don't have other persons who've raised. I will now call on the mover of the motion, the Honorable Speaker Mapisa and Kakula, to respond to the debate.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. Let us start with the last issue, which is the list of countries which have not signed. If you look at the list behind us on the wall there, that list is not, the information contained there is not necessarily accurate. We've just been discussing it now with the SG. It does not reflect some of the countries we have already signed. For instance, Angola, Swatini, South Africa, Lesotho, Malawi, Seychelles, Tanzania, Zimbabwe have signed. Countries which have not signed, it's Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique, Comoros, Madagascar, Mauritius, right? Those are the countries which have not signed. And I want to make a confession that even as South Africa, we signed this when, with less than a year, I think. We signed this in DRC. Our president signed that on the sidelines of the summit, okay? So sometimes and the reason why we must try as much as possible to engage with people, to continue lobbying and coerce people into signing, it is because if we take a decision to go ahead and establish this without having some of the countries having signed, we're going to have a problem because those countries will fall off automatically from the PF. I hope I'm understood that if we leave these countries outside, that's why we must persuade one another. That's why we must keep on nudging our leaders to sign. Otherwise, what it means is that if we decide to go ahead, let's say next year, as Honorable Mutenda was suggesting, let's say we have about 10 countries, still we don't have the 12. It means that the rest of the countries will fall off from the SADC PF. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges we are having with regards to this. Now, sorry, I'm told Zambia has not signed. Sorry, Zambia, you have not signed. Now, on the matter of the trust deed, it is mentioned there that in the report that we have 3 countries, namely Namibia, which is represented by the Speaker, Kachavivi, Angola, which is Portuguese speaking, and then DRC, which is French, right? Now, the Honorable Mutenda was just suggesting that at the last EXCO, it is true, at the EXCO in Namibia, we discussed a possibility of including another name, and that is the Honorable Muti. The problem is that currently the deed is crafted in a manner such that only 3 people are accommodated. So if we are to add, to have an additional name to it, we would have to go back and go for a review of that deed. I don't know if you were aware of that, Honorable Mutenda, but you people, colleagues, you've been here longer, so you'd be able to clarify the matter, I'm sure, better. But for now, the manner in which that trust deed is crafted is that it can only have 3 names. Now, the other matter there's a matter which I thought, I don't know if honorable members, which I thought I don't know if I'm correct, if members are uncomfortable, they can raise their reservations. If you look at 7.3.2, it talks to, it says, in this respect, the forum will submit a new project proposal for a 3-year period to Sweden with focuses on areas which includes gender equality and sexual gender-based violence, universal health coverage, comprehensive sexuality education, early and unintended pregnancies, and safe abortion. And then, of course, and the advancement of democratization and human rights. Honorable members, I was requesting that maybe we should consider not using safe abortion, but talk about safe termination of pregnancy, because that is the term which is commonly used than abortion. But it's a proposal I'm putting on the table. Maybe people may not be comfortable with it. The documents, Honorable Member from Tanzania, all the documents were sent online. Check your emails, check your WhatsApp. That's where you'll find the documents. The intention was to make sure that this is a paperless exercise summit. So we will find those in our gadgets. The establishment of a lobby team, as Honorable Mutende has already indicated. I don't know how many people are in the lobby team. The last I knew, was still in the executive then, was a lobby team which consisted of the former Speaker of Angola, the former Speaker of South Africa, and maybe, I think maybe Honorable Mutenda as well. But the issue is now, the lobby team must continue with its work. We can't keep on pushing this thing backwards and not making progress. Lastly, I do want to say this, that the sad thing about not having this body is that other regions do have. And they do have this body. As a result, they are strong. They can be very strong and even stronger than we are. And yet, SADC as SADC has always been regarded, at least at the level of the executive, as a very strong region, very well coordinated, and well organized to a point where if SADC wants something, if we want a position, we are able to speak with one voice and get that position. So when we are disorganized in the manner, we're not getting to that point where we are a solid block by having this kind of parliament. It really disadvantages us. A number of people, MPs, believed before we even launched the Pan-African Parliament that we would have had this body in SADC launched, particularly because the brains behind were our own leaders in our region. So that's all I can say, Honorable President, on the matter, unless there's a matter I've left out. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Well, after the response of the mover of the motion, I put the question that the report of the Executive Committee on Policy and Administrative Matters be adopted by the Plenary Assembly. Are there any objections?
No objections.
There being no objections, the report of the Executive Committee on Policy and Administrative Matters is duly adopted. Thank you. Honorable members, I know we're a little bit late, but I will now propose a health break. I will allow 30 minutes and we will return at 17:15. Thank you. We will rise and adjourn.